So listen to me, weary spirit, you who wake up early, who give your blood, your time, your youth, to a system that only tolerates you while you are useful. You who have silently accepted humiliating wages, an ignorant boss, the constant fear of dismissal. You who believed that effort was a virtue, that sweat would save your skin, that obedience was enough to win. Tell me, where is your reward? Where is your dignity? Because if work were enough, the strongest would be at the top. But they are not. They are on crowded buses, in stuffy warehouses, in mediocre offices, tied to clocks and deadlines, like caged animals. Meanwhile, the weakest steers, the truly weak, those who do not create, who do not lead, who do not dare, they rule. They laugh, they inherit, they manipulate. Do you see the abyss? Do you see the lie? You believed that virtue lay in serving, that nobility lay in sacrifice, that the morality of the honest, hard-working man was your redemption. But it was your collar. You were taught to work like a donkey and wait like a servant. And now, when your youth is beginning to die, when your bones can no longer bear so much weight, when emptiness sets in, you dare to ask, why do those who work hardest earn the least? Because the system that rewards effort is a fable, told by those who don't have to make an effort. Because you have been domesticated. You have become obedient, predictable, a perfect servant. And the world does not reward servants. The world consumes them. But I don't blame you. On the contrary, I understand your pain. I see the fire still pulsing beneath the ashes, because if you ask yourself these questions, you are already waking up. If you doubt, you are already beginning to see. And if you suffer, it is because your soul refuses to accept this humiliation as natural. Your suffering is not a mistake. It is a sign that your will to power has been caged, but it still lives. Your fatigue is the silent protest of a spirit that was not born to crawl. What holds you back, then? It is the morality of the herd. This morality that exalts humility, obedience, sacrifice. This morality that glorifies the good employee, the hard-working father, the dedicated servant. These are all euphemisms for castration. The morality of the weak, created by the weak, to keep the strong subjugated. And you who may be strong have been poisoned by it since birth, since childhood. You were taught not to bother anyone, to ask permission, to adapt. They said, God helps those who work. The humble will be exalted. Good things come to those who wait. And you waited, and you still wait. But what have you reaped? Debts, frustration, a miserable pride for silently enduring what should be fought. This is the trap. They made you love your chains, because those who love their captivity never escape. And you were taught to be ashamed of your desire for greatness, to blame yourself for wanting more, to believe that ambition is arrogance, that wealth is sin, that boldness is recklessness. But I ask you now, and I don't want easy answers. Who told you that it is noble to suffer in silence? Who convinced you that serving others is more dignified than serving yourself? Who made you believe that working yourself to exhaustion for a miserable wage is honorable, not slavery? Yes, free spirit, because that is what you are, even if you don't know it. Yet all of this has been instilled by a morality designed to keep the strong busy, tired, distracted. The honest worker is the most efficient ideal of the shepherd of souls. He prides himself on his own submission. He competes with his equals for crumbs. He defends his oppressors with the fervor of a faithful dog. He never rebels because he thinks hell is disobedience. But I tell you, hell is to continue living like this. Hell is to waste your will to power on mechanical tasks. It is to stifle your creative impulses under routine. It is to spend your whole life being useful to the dreams of others, while your own desires rot in the basement of your soul. And now that I see you paying attention, now that I see your eyes opening, I challenge you, don't seek comfort. Don't seek justice. Seek strength. Seek truth. And above all, seek your own measure of worth. Because the world around you measures worth by usefulness, by profit, by docility. But you are not a tool. You are not a number. You are not a human resource. You are a force yet to be awakened, a will yet to be asserted, a potential creator, dormant beneath layers of fear, guilt, and habit. And this pain you feel, this despair that grows every time you see your efforts ignored, is proof that something inside you refuses to accept the mediocre fate that has been imposed on you. Yes, there is something sacred in your suffering, but not because it purifies you. That is the lie of priests. Your suffering is sacred because it pushes you to the edge of the abyss. It forces you to choose. Either resign yourself forever, or rise up against everything. And if you are ready for that choice, then come with me to the desert, away from the churches of work, the altars of productivity, the liturgies of meritocracy. There, where free men are forged in silence and fire, where value is not given, but earned, where every scar is a medal of the soul. There is no comfort there, but there is power, there is truth, there is a new kind of honor, not the honor of the servant who obeys, but of the spirit that creates its own law. And that is where I want to take you. Because the first step to your liberation is this: recognizing that working hard, within the morality of the herd, only serves to keep the herd functioning. Now write your rebellion in the comments, but not as a lament, as a declaration of war. Say, I was not born to be a tool, because that is the first act of rebellion, and that is where the path of the strong spirit begins. Very good. Now that we have torn away the veil of illusion, it is time to dissect the disease. Because the system that exploits you is not sustained solely by economic gears, but by an invisible set of values, a morality implanted in the core of your psyche. And the most insidious of these is this: the idea that obedient suffering is a virtue. This idea was not born with you, it was programmed, and its genealogy lies at the heart of herd morality. Think about it. Why is it that in almost every culture, the humble worker, the dedicated servant, the honest laborer is glorified, but never the free spirit, the creator, the rebellious? Because those who obey without complaint are useful, they are predictable, they are harmless, and the system only survives because there are millions like them breaking themselves in the name of a promise that will never be fulfilled. You were indoctrinated from an early age. At school they told you, sit down, obey, repeat, be quiet. They rewarded you when you were passive, punished you when you dared at home. They told you, work, respect, don't question. And in religion, the sermon was always the same. It is noble to suffer. It is beautiful to be humble. The last shall be first. But it was all a sham, a slave morality, created by slaves, to transform powerlessness into sanctity. When the weak could no longer win by force, they invented a reversal of values. They made weakness a virtue, submission an honor, poverty a blessing, and those who dared to live intensely, who created their own paths, were branded selfish, arrogant, sinners. This is how herd morality was born, as revenge, as resentment, not of strength, but of powerlessness. Those who could not dominate began to poison, and you inherited this poison. Today, it disguises itself as the ethics of effort. They tell you that the world is fair, that if you work hard, one day you will reap the rewards. But it's a lie. The world is not fair. It is just an arena where the will to power clashes with the resistance of reality, and effort, in itself, is nothing. What matters is where your strength asserts itself, how your will imposes itself, what values it creates. Working hard in a system that hates you does not make you virtuous. It makes you functional. It makes you disposable. And most perversely, it makes you believe that your misery is your own fault, because you didn't work hard enough. That's the trap. The slave who blames himself is the perfect slave. He doesn't need chains. He carries his prison within himself. And you, how many times have you felt guilty for resting? How many times have you compared yourself to those who have more, thinking it was because you didn't try hard enough? How many times have you been called lazy, a dreamer, a bum, just because you refused to accept the brutal logic of a world that demands everything from you and gives you crumbs? Listen, your laziness is not the problem. Your laziness can be sacred, a cry from the body against absurdity, an instinctive protest against exploitation. The real problem is your conformity. It is your meek acceptance of an order that sucks you dry. It is your naive hope that someday they will see you, reward you, free you. They won't. They won't reward you. They won't set you free. You yourself will have to destroy this morality from within. And it hurts, because it lives in you. It whispers when you think about changing. It paralyzes you when you try to create. It sabotages you when you dare to dream. It makes you feel unworthy of success, incapable of leadership, wrong for wanting more. But that is exactly the turning point. When you feel this internal conflict, this tension between what you were taught to be and what your soul wants to be, it is a sign that your will is awakening. So I ask you now, and I don't want you to run away from the answer. How many hours a week do you devote to maintaining a life that makes you sick? How many ideas have you stifled for fear of appearing arrogant? How many of your talents are rusting away because they are not marketable? How many Sundays have you spent anxious, anticipating the prison of Monday? And above all, how long do you intend to live like this? There is no cure without confrontation, and this is the confrontation. Here, with me, with your own shadow, with the voices that inhabit your mind, and repeat, you can't, you don't deserve it, you're just another one. Those voices are not yours. They were implanted by frustrated parents, by tamed teachers, by decadent religious leaders, by cowardly bosses, all repeating the same chant. Accept your place, work quietly, wait for your reward, but your reward is death, old age with regret, a broken body without having lived, an unsatisfied soul that never dared. And if that revolts you, if that makes you despair, if that burns you inside, then congratulations, you are alive. There is still fire in you, there is still strength. So now, free spirit, I invite you to a small act of revolution. Write in the comments the lie you were taught, the one that hurt you the most, that held you back the most. Reveal it, name it, because what is named begins to die, and that is how you kill the herd mentality, with clarity, with courage, with the right words said at the right time, because only those who dare to see what has been done to them can begin to rebuild themselves. But you still want to know, if herd morality is a sham, why does it thrive? Why does it dominate schools, homes, temples, offices? Because it is useful not to you, but to the system. Because it serves to tame your will, to erase your spirit, to make you predictable, controllable, consumable. What do they tell you? When you complain, be grateful. At least you have a job. There are people worse off than you. These are mantras of fear. They are the invisible chains that prevent you from fighting for more. Because a grateful servant is easier to manage than a rebellious one. And so, gratitude has become a disguise for resignation. Humility has become cowardice. Patience has become paralysis. But don't be fooled. This is not a criticism of work itself. Work can be divine when it is an expression of your strength, your creation, your will. But what they call work today is not that. It is repetition. It is alienation. It is meaningless wear and tear. The true work of the free spirit is to create value, not just produce goods. It is to transform the world, not just adapt to it. It is to leave a mark, not just fulfill tasks. But to do that, you need to break away from false promises, from castrating morals, from the illusion that hard work alone will be rewarded. Because life does not reward the obedient, it rewards the daring. Look around you, those who have truly created something new, those who have left a legacy, those who have gone beyond the hurdle, without exception, have been called crazy, arrogant, dangerous, because they threatened the silent pact of mediocrity. And you, free spirit, are you willing to be that? Are you ready to lose the approval of the weak, the comfort of the tamed, the security of the submissive? Because that is the price of freedom. To walk without applause, to bleed without witnesses, to build without guarantees. But it is also the only path worth taking. Because when you create your own measure of value, you become unattainable. When you stop measuring your worth by your salary, your position, or the opinions of others, you become dangerous. And a dangerous man is a man alive. Now listen, there's a silent cycle that governs your life without you realizing it. It is the cycle of impotence. Work, tire yourself out, consume, fall asleep. It is the vicious circle that keeps your spirit numb, your soul malnourished. You believe you need rest, but what you need is meaning. What exhausts you is not work, but the absence of purpose. What consumes you is not the hours, but their emptiness. You are dying not from effort, but from insignificance. And what prevents you from breaking this cycle? Fear. Fear of failure, of appearing ungrateful, of losing what little you have. But let me tell you something brutal. That little is already almost nothing. And what seems like security is just a luxury prison. So now comes the hardest part, the interrogation. You who work so hard, ... Why are you ashamed to say how much you earn? You who try so hard. Why do you need alcohol, TV shows, distractions, to endure your routine? You who dream of freedom. Why are you so afraid to say no? You who complain about the rich. Why do you still try to imitate them? You who despise politicians. Why do you continue to obey their laws as if they were sacred? You who talk about self-love ... Why do you prostitute yourself for validation? You who want to be seen. Why do you hide behind masks, you who want to be free? Why do you keep your spirit chained to the expectations of others? These questions are not rhetorical. They are mirrors, mirrors that force you to face what you have done to yourself and what you can still do. Because there is still time, there is still strength, there is still fire. But the price is high. You need to unlearn the humility of the weak, the hope of fools, the ethics of slaves. You will need to face emptiness, contempt, incomprehension, because no one applauds. Those who abandon the herd, they will call you ungrateful, arrogant, a traitor. But they are not your friends, they are your emotional jailers. They want you to stay the same, so they don't have to change. But you have already started to change, and that is irreversible. Now, any attempt to go back will be even more painful, because your soul has already seen what lies beyond the fence, and it wants more. It wants everything. So accept your rebellion as a blessing. Accept your pain as a sign of birth. Accept your loneliness as the necessary dessert before creation. And if you want to take a symbolic step, write in the comments, I owe nothing to the herd, because that is the beginning of your freedom. No longer asking permission to be who you are. So now, free spirit, you need to understand the root of this resentment that consumes your soul every time you see someone gain more by doing less. Every time you witness the victory of the mediocre, the rise of the sycophant, the celebration of emptiness. Why does it hurt you? Because you still believe deep down that the world should be fair, that effort should be proportional to reward, that there is a secret morality regulating destinies, but there isn't. That is the greatest poison of herd morality, the illusion of justice, the idea that there is a cosmic scale where your sacrifices are recorded and where, one day, everything will be compensated. That is not ethics, it is superstition. It is Christianity recycled into corporate discourse. The last shall be first. Everything has its time. Your time will come. Pious lies so that you continue digging the mine that is not yours. And when you realize that your time never comes, that your time is never fulfilled, what happens? Resentment is born. The most vile, corrosive, sterile emotion that a spirit can harbor. But what is resentment? It is the emotional impotence of the weak who cannot assert their strength and therefore deny the strength of others. It is the revenge of those who cannot act and therefore judge. It is the soul that desires but is afraid to desire, that envies but refuses to admit it. That is why the resentful glorify failure. They turn it into proof of morality. They call their misery virtue, their cowardice modesty, their envy justice. They do not seek to elevate themselves, they seek to lower others. And that is why the resentful love the idea that the rich are evil, that the successful are corrupt, that the free are selfish. But listen carefully. That anger you feel when you see the weak defeated by the weak, that is not resentment, it is righteous anger. It is the soul beginning to demand consistency between its internal value and its place in the world. It is the will to power seeking to escape the shackles of inverted morality. The difference between resentment and rebellion is this. The resentful want to destroy others. The rebellious want to transform themselves. The resentful want no one to have anything. The rebellious want to be worthy of having. And this is where your transformation begins. It is no longer enough to reject lies. You must build your own truth, a truth that does not come from fear, but from power, that is not inherited, but created, that does not obey the logic of the herd, but the uniqueness of your spirit. What is this truth? It is that you have the right to desire, the right to win, the right to conquer, the right to create your own value, even if no one recognizes it. This means you must abandon the cult of suffering. You must stop seeking nobility in failure. You must tear from yourself the belief that being good means being small, that being fair means accepting everything, that being worthy means living as a martyr. The world does not belong to the good, it belongs to the strong, and the truly strong are those who, even when stepping on chaos, can dance. Therefore, your task now is to rebuild your ethics, an ethic of affirmation, where work is not punishment, but an exercise of power, where gain is not guilt, but consequence, where pleasure is not sin, but a measure of your ability to create beauty from suffering. What does this require of you? First, that you abandon all comparison. To compare yourself is to accept that others define you, and you are not a copy, you are an exception. Second, that you stop asking for recognition. The herd will never recognize a free spirit. On the contrary, it will try to destroy it. Learn to be your own mirror, your own judge, your own temple. Third, choose who you spend your energy on. The time you have is finite, and every conversation, every project, every shared emotion is an investment. Spend yourself where your strength flourishes, not where it is drained. Fourth, learn to enjoy your solitude. The herd fears silence, for in silence it hears its repressed cries. You must embrace it, for that is where your will begins to speak louder. And fifth, say no, often, firmly, without explanation. No is the first act of creation. It is the blow that breaks the altar of the old god. It is the hammer that makes room for the new. But beware, this path is irreversible. Once you leave the herd, there is no turning back. Your old friends will become strangers. Your old teachers will seem foolish. Your old goals will reveal themselves as childish. You will be alone but free. And that loneliness is the gestation of something new. It is the desert before the vision. It is the void before creation. And this is where the metamorphosis begins. From servant to creator, from victim to force, from cog in the system to architect of your own destiny. So free spirit. I give you one last challenge in this post. Write in the comments the most false value you were taught as truth, the belief that weakened you the most. Name the idol, because only by naming it does its power over you begin to crumble. Now, free spirit, the time has come to transmute your pain into power, because you have seen prison from the inside. You have felt on your skin the gentle violence of herd morality, mediocrity glorified as kindness, resignation disguised as wisdom. You have suffered, yes, but surviving is not enough. It is time to live as a creator. From this moment on, it is not enough to destroy old values. New ones must be forged, because the liberated spirit that does not create its own code will soon be imprisoned by the code of another. And history is full of rebels who freed themselves from chains, only to kneel before a new altar. That is why I say to you, do not replace the morality of the herd with the morality of the resentful. Do not exchange civility for cynicism. Do not take refuge in nihilism. The world does not need more destroyers. It needs builders, sculptors of themselves, artists of existence. What does this mean in practice? That your new measure of value can no longer come from outside, not from your salary, nor from applause, nor from suffering endured. Your new measure is your power, your ability to transform your will into reality. Your power to give shape to chaos, to dance on uncertainty, to live with style even in the face of pain. Yes, the pain continues, but it no longer dominates you. You take it in your hands like a blacksmith takes red-hot iron. With it, you forge your character, your limits, your principles. You no longer ask for life to be easy, you only ask that it be yours. And that requires brutal choices. It requires you to cut ties with what feeds your powerlessness, to abandon the roles that hold you back, to refuse to be the eternal child, the loyal employee, the obedient citizen, the repentant sinner. Those are not your names, they are masks, and you were born to tear them off. Your new identity will not be given to you, it will be earned, not by decree, but by action, by your solitary decisions, by the price you are willing to pay. Because to live as a creator is to lose the right to play the victim. It is to carry the weight of your own failures alone, without attributing them to the system, fate, or the devil. But in return, you gain something that no system can give you: sovereignty, the rare and dangerous sovereignty of those who no longer need to please, convince, or beg, of those who no longer ask for a place in the world, they create their own space, of those who no longer look for mirrors, they become beacons. Think about it. What is a good life? It is not a comfortable life, nor is it a fair life, not even a happy life. A good life is a life with direction, a life with creative tension, a life that powerfully expresses what is unique, wild, and non-transferable in you. And that direction is not written in any book. It was not taught by your parents. It will not be revealed by me. It is within you, in what you secretly desire, in what you are afraid to admit, even to yourself, in the impulse that makes you vibrate even when you are tired. That impulse is your will to power, and it does not just want to survive, it wants to expand, it wants to flourish, it wants to leave its mark. But expansion comes at a price. Confrontation. You will have to face your fear of failure, your dread of being ridiculous, your anguish of being alone, your addiction to approval, your dependence on stability. all the little demons that grow in the shadows of your comfort zone, and there are no guarantees, none. You may fall, you may make mistakes, you may lose everything you have, but if you remain true to yourself, you will emerge from those falls, stronger, clearer, more yourself, because true failure is not falling, it is living below your potential. It is silencing the cry of your spirit for fear of disturbing others. It is going through life as a spectator of your own destiny. That is tragedy. That is sin, the only sin I recognize, betraying yourself. So, from now on, every decision you make should answer a single question. Does this make me more or less who I am? Does this bring me closer to or further away from my greatness? Does this feed my power or just mask my cowardice? You don't have to change the world. You don't have to build an empire. But you must change the way you are in the world. Every gesture, every word, every silence must bear your signature like a work of art, because you are not a product. You are a process, a becoming, a continuous creation, and that process is sacred. Not in a religious sense, but in an aesthetic sense. Your life should be beautiful, intense, unmistakable. Your journey should leave traces like a comet leaves light, even if no one understands it, even if they think you're crazy, especially if they think you're crazy. Now, free spirit, I extend one last invitation to you. If you have the courage to be a creator, write in the comments the phrase that will define your new ethics, not a memorized phrase, one of your own, one that sums up your direction, your silent revolution, your new measure of value, because the spirit that writes its own law no longer belongs to the herd. It is already a bridge beyond man, to the beyond man. And you, are you ready?